how many exploratory majors do we have? And we decided when you come to Florida State, you have to choose an area, science area, arts area, so that you can get on track. Because if you enter the sciences and you don't start algebra and calculus early on, you're not going to graduate in 4 years. So they would say, I'd say, and very accountable, because there's an individual name associated with every action. Okay, Megan, do you have it? And we usually do them on Saturdays or Sundays with pizza. Megan, do you have enough money to cover everything? How many people are coming? Do you need any backup for this? Send another one out to all the community college. How's it going? Community college transfers, everything going okay? Come by. So by doing that, we were able to get some additional improvement in graduation and retention. Now, one of the amazing things, and I don't know when it started. I know when I went to college, I hate people who start that. I'm going to forget that. When did we start allowing students to select their own schedule? We have hundreds of area experts, content experts on our campus, and yet we let students just pick whatever they want. The single easiest thing and biggest bang we got was by having alphabetical for every major, a term-by-term, 4-year graduation plan. Now, you're probably thinking, well, we have something like that. The key here is if you are not registering on that plan for that major, you're kicked out of the registration. You cannot register until you go and see somebody. That is the single biggest bang for the buck that Georgia State, Arizona State, Florida State, University of Florida got. Now, don't make the mistake of asking the departments to do this. It will take eons. What you do is you get your group together on Fridays, you assign out, and you go through the catalog, you put together the best you can, you shoot it to the department and say, if this isn't right, correct it, but we're publishing it in 2 weeks. Because you're never going to get it through a department. They'll get them to re-examine their whole requirements, and nothing will happen. So get it to them. And look at the change. We gained 3.1% in graduation rate alone when that was implemented. Incredible. When you think about improving retention and graduation, it's not easy. That's a huge improvement. The other thing it did, and I'm almost embarrassed, I wish the legislature never saw this. I just casually asked, how many students do we have with over 110 hours who haven't applied for graduation? 7,382? The hell is going on here? These students had been assigning themselves, you know, which courses they wanted to take, when they wanted to take them. Oh, my girlfriend's taking this, I'll take it with her. I was unbelievable. We had students literally, I forget what the record is, over 250 hours. And so I said, okay, we're going to graduate anybody who's got enough credits in enough areas. The Faculty Senate didn't like that. I said, why not? I mean, they've got the hours, we ought to graduate them. And if you don't have majors that are a little bit flexible, you need them. Just do a web search and you'll see, I started and for some reason I went to University of Minnesota first. They have 5 different degrees that are kind of general. Ours is called Interdisciplinary Social Sciences. I promise you, if you have 120 hours, I can graduate you in Interdisciplinary Social Sciences. I'm serious. 0 students come in indicating a desire for that major. It's our number 3 degree. I mean, it's that they get off track and you need to help them. And believe me, if you look around, you'll find plenty of degrees just like that. The other thing you want to do is look at high enrollment, high DF courses. George mentioned that this morning. I look at every grade in every course by college, by department, by course, by faculty member every term, just like I do with student evaluation of teaching. You know, you can do an Excel pivot table and have tons of information at your fingertips. Just a wonderful invention. I don't know who invented it, but I love it. So then you can look at these courses, and you know, when I looked at them, I was amazed how can multicultural film have high D's and F's? And the reason is, when you looked at the course syllabus, you thought, as a student, you're going to go watch films, foreign films. You know, maybe have some sex and nudity in them, good deal. The faculty members thinking symbolism, postmodern analysis, you know, this massive disconnect. You go to the faculty member and you say, we got to get on the same page here. Let's make sure the students know what they're getting into when they get in there. So what happens when they get in trouble? If students get in trouble, this is, if they hit below 2.0, at the end of that term, you're going to lose about 20% or so. The next term, you're going to lose 22% more. So as soon as they drop below 2.0, you're going to lose half of those students in 2 semesters. Is there any way to stop the bleeding? Well, we looked around, we found lots of courses out there, and went with a student success, academic success course that has all of these topics in there. If you drop below 2.0, you are mandated into the course. And I can tell you, students do not like being mandated, which kills me. They're paying like 25% of the cost of their education, and they think they have 100% of the vote? You know? I explained it to them, though. When you pay 100% of the cost, you can make the decisions. In the meantime, we're making the decisions. This is one that is a little dicey in terms of return on investment, because in addition to measuring every single thing I could, I wanted to know what the cost was in dollars, what the dollar return was, and that along with, you know, what's our best guess of the return of human capital. And you can see, you know, we're moving in the right direction, but I'm analyzing this right now in a lot more detail, and it's not clear we're getting our money's worth. Now, we're saving some students, which is good, but it's not clear that what we're spending versus what we're saving, putting it in cold cash terms, is really cost effective. It's a labor of love. I mean, I think it's important. We'll probably continue doing it, but we're going to have to find a way to make it more effective. Well, we were improving along the way. We were up to about 89% after we put this course in. And if you go back and think about that ACT study where it was self-confidence, motivation, academic goals, I went to a seminar meeting by a company called Inside Track who does coaching. And I listened to them, and then I looked at the business model and said, we can't afford it. You know, it's just too expensive. So I visited with them and said, let's make a deal. How much would you charge us to train our people and to do the evaluation? So we cut a much more reasonable deal. And when I say the evaluation and training, they take this seriously. The student who is being coached signs an agreement that the interaction can be recorded. So we take those recordings, we have a third party evaluate them. Did the coach keep the student on task? Was the coach able to keep the student moving in the right direction? And it was really hard. A lot of these, on campuses, they hate accountability. I mean, they hate being evaluated. I mean, that's just true. It's part of the culture. So these students who were all A students before they became coaches when they graduated, they didn't like the fact that they were getting C's and C minuses. And we had about 25% turnover the first year. And then we learned that, we had to work on that a little bit more. So we did this was truly randomized controls. We did about a total of around, 2,400 students. And we put them in coached or non-coached. And this is just one round, so from one fall to the end of the spring. And in every category, there is improvement. Not dramatic improvement, but in every category, there is improvement. Once we saw that, then we could take high-risk students. First generation, Pell eligible, small high schools, rural areas, and give them coaches. And the coach has to meet with that student every single week for 15 minutes. The coach then fills out a web form on their progress. The student fills out a web form on what they've committed to do, and that is then assessed every week. It's a very time-consuming, labor-intensive, but for the high-risk students, I think it's worth it. For those, we got to 90.7% at the end of that. What about the students that have the attrition pattern that goes every single term? Well, we have a Center for Academic Retention and Enhancement. It's does first generation, low socioeconomic status, and low, generally, SAT scores that nobody would take a look at. It operates a summer bridge program. There's a lot of mandatory activities. The key strategies, through the various federal outreach programs, TRIO and others, we start working in middle school. If I had my way, I would start in 3rd grade. I really, truly believe after being out in the schools, working with those students, if there's any humanly way I could do it, I would start in 3rd grade. I mean, I think we could have a huge positive impact. The second thing is inculcating a culture of success. We tell them, you're admitted to this program, you're graduating. Nobody drops out of this program. The peer pressure is enormous on those students, but they support one another. We cover financial aid 100% of the first term. Try and do the first year, but in Florida, we give away $430 million a year in non-need-based aid based on SATs, which means that all the families with over $150,000, $200,000 income are guaranteed that money. My children got it. This was a long time ago, 45 years old now, but it was embarrassing. They were going to go to college no matter what. What kind of public policy takes someone who's going to do something anyway and then gives them extra money? Ex-president called it the New Car Relief Act. Dad, you got $600 cash and everything paid, all tuition and fees. At the second level, you got 3/4 of everything. It's just a terrible system. People were talking about, touchy-feely and sappy. Well, I'm not that kind of person. Big surprise, right? But we had when the summer bridge, we decided, I didn't, the other people decided to have a scavenger hunt for all the new students, or a week before class. So the scavenger hunt is they have to get the provost's signature, they have to get the director of financial aid, the library. And at first I thought, it was wonderful. I mean, it really, really worked. You had 300 students going around to all these offices, all enthusiastic, driven, ready to go. So everybody knew those students. So think about it. After 4 or 5 years, you have over 1,000, 1,200 students in this group that they believe are going to be successful. Everyone's going to succeed. They believed it so much, we started 2 honor societies to recognize them. The Oscar Arias Honor Society, the Nobel laureate from Costa Rica, who actually came to campus as part of it. And then the Du Bois family gave us permission to do that. So now we have 2 honor societies, 3.5 to get in at the end of the first year. And the students, I mean, it's almost a touching ceremony. I don't get touched much, but it is. I mean, they applaud one another, they support one another. It's a great thing. Now, I don't know what happened here. But you can see the retention rate in care is 94% versus 90.7. Graduation rate 74 for 2009 versus 69.7. These are students that are absolutely the most high risk. And look at the graduation rate. So if I was head of the post-secondary here, and I would require as homework, you all do your academic maps within 6 weeks. And you remember, they don't work if you don't put a stop on registration. Then you do those action steps aligned with the academic calendar, week 1, week 2. And those weekly meetings, it keeps retention and graduation on everyone's mind right up front, and it reminds you, if you look through these, those steps, that they're going to improve things. The other is move the advisors to where the students are, and monitor, collect those data. The 2 places it did not work is in the gym. I had a little advising office in the gym. 0. I mean, I said, have you tried tackling them as they come in the door? They don't want anything to do. And the other one, which surprised me, the food court. Nothing. But the library, the classroom buildings, the student union, all of those worked wonderfully. Put your high-risk students in residence halls. And I hope you have better luck than I did. I fought with the residence hall people from day one. Oh no, this is our policy and this is how we want to do it. I even said, I'll buy 500 rooms. You know, I'll pay for them up front, but I want those 500 rooms for our most at-risk students. Oh no, we do this certain, it drives you crazy. The honor societies, no cost. Freshman interest groups, almost no cost. The learning communities and residence halls, that, when we were renovating, we just added a seminar room and a classroom. And then if there's any way to encourage taking attendance in those high DF courses, that would be a really big help. Some higher cost. We, with student government and the library started, head librarian said, look, let's gut the first floor and make it a big open space. And they have glass rooms all around that you can write on the glass and all, and they seat either 6 to 8 or 12 to 15. And so you'll walk in, you'll see calculus study hall, 11 to 12 tonight. Anybody can just drop in. And then they have 12 drop-in grad students for tutoring. And we now have enough data where you can do a logistic regression and show that if they go 3 or more times to a tutorial session, they jump 1 full letter in that class. It's pretty dramatic. The coaches, there's a lot of different ways you can do coaching. You can study it and develop your own. Or I understand the company is now modifying their previous program to work with you to do the training and all of that. It is really, really good training. The Office of Undergraduate Research, we probably overfunded it, but at that time we had money. And so students, undergraduate students can write a grant proposal and get $4,000 for the summer. They can get $1,000 if they don't get one of the $4,000. Now, personally, I think those students are going to be successful anyway, but it is really nice to add something for those high-performing, high-driven students. Re-engineer the low-success courses. And this is one of the things that I hope has struck you, is we have added over 10 percentage points without having to burden faculty with additional work. We're at the point now where we're going to have to. Now we talk about having to re-engineer courses. What can we do to improve that? Adding advisors and cross-training them. A lot of tension there. When we first did it, departments said, oh no, give us the money, we'll hire advisors. I was a department chair. You know, when a budget cuts, who's the easiest person to get rid of? The advisor. You know, students will wander around and figure it out somehow. Do the successful, you know, learning strategy. So we're now at 92.8%. CS stands for the culture of success. Because what you will see is that as more and more students are successful, they tell other people they're successful, and pretty soon everyone has got this culture of success. High expectations, high success. For our 2004 cohort, African Americans 77%, the general student body 74%, first generation and Hispanic, we have to do a lot more work on 72 and 70.4%. Considering that we added a huge percentage to every one of those, and the 92.8% retention hasn't had a chance to move through. My modeling, my best guess is that we should be about 81% by doing all of this, not because of SAT or GPA, but by watching the success. I didn't point this out. It's a fine point, but it's an important one. The better you get, the easier it is to get better. If you looked at that regression of retention versus graduation, that line starts getting steeper once you hit over about 78%. And it gets steeper and steeper. It's just like SAT and family income. Once that line gets over 140,000, it steepens quite a bit. It really does work. Now, I know you're going to say, you don't have the money. Everyone says, you don't have the money. Let me just say one thing. Money doesn't count. Attitude is everything in making this work. You can do a huge amount with attitude. Now, 2.2 $6 million sounds like a lot of money, but remember, that's over 10 years. Now, let's think about what I made back in tuition collection alone, not student fees, because sadly, I can't get a hold of that money as much as I would like to. We collected an additional $6.1 million in tuition. So after we paid for what we did, and we always had some spaces in classrooms, that was a 1% raise for the faculty. That's what exactly what we did with that money. Gave the faculty a 1% raise. I mean, 1% is not much, but in Florida, we haven't had a raise in 6 years, so 1% was pretty nice for people to see. The strategy here is you need to know, because no one's going to want to give you money. You're going to have to take it. So what you do is figure out now, get with the people, and figure out exactly what you're collecting in tuition. And then as you implement this and improve retention, you want a piece of that money back to reinvest. And it doesn't take long before it starts paying off. It pays off. Literally, you start gaining in the first year as soon as you get that going. And if you do the academic map and time of day, day of week, a few other things, you're going to get 3 or 4 or 5%. That's a lot of money coming in, whether you're a small or a big school. And that's what I think about retention and graduation. Practical steps you can implement and you can measure every single step of the way. Thank you. Not at all.
So if you have one, please raise your hand and ask.
I will say the value of doing this is, without involving faculty, is we now have the momentum. So when we go to faculty about re-engineering courses, that it's not going onto them early where they already have too much to do, too many things on their plate. Now we can say, look, this is where we are. That improvement got us all a raise last year. If we can just bump it up. Because my experience is friends of mine for 25 years, when I say, let's talk about retention and graduation, the first thing out of their mouth, you just want us to lower standards. As if my brain changed walking from my laboratory to the administration office. You know, I lost all the weird. Yes. I hope it was the same thing, so I didn't lie. Right. We split it into, about half of them we put in departments. And virtually all the departments had one advisor already. And even though they pushed back, it took almost no time at all for them to form a team. Now, the people that were going to work off hours and all, they knew it ahead of time. You know, when we hired them, and we said, you can either rotate through or your regular work can be Sunday through Thursday in the library or in the student union. And I know this sounds a little bit cruel, but you know, you can hire fabulous young students as soon as they get their degree. You can hire them very low cost. They love students. They love the institution. They are fantastic ambassadors. And how can you expect faculty to remember all of the general ed requirements? I don't know about your campus. I don't think a PhD in communication could read the catalog and figure out the general ed requirements. I mean, you have to have one in multicultural here and one in interdisciplinary there and one X and one Y. Give me a break. There must be some core that we all care about. So it's a great deal to hire these advisors, and you will make your money back on it. Thank you all.